Good evening. This is a regular scheduled meeting of the Kettering City Council. Today's date is January 25th, 2022, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start with an invocation. Dear Lord, thank you for your abundant blessings and surrounding us with stewardship and a supportive community in Kettering. We thank you for the ability to engage in useful work and for the honor of bearing these important responsibilities. We are grateful for your boundless love for all of us. Please continue to give us the strength and compassion with which to serve, and grant us the wisdom to make appropriate decisions. Help us remain humble and grateful for the opportunity to lead. Guide this council so that we may work in harmony while serving our citizens with integrity and purpose. Allow us to fulfill the responsibilities entrusted in us by our residents. Amen. Amen. Now, next I would like to recognize our Miami Valley Communication Council TV operator, Mike Soproni. Mike, thank you for your assistance. And I would now call on the Vice Mayor for approval of minutes.
Your Honor, I have read both the council and workshop minutes for January the 11th, and I find them all in order, and I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall? Yes. Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mayor Lehner?
Yes. We now have proclamations and special presentations. There are no proclamations or presentations, so we will move on to the public hearings. There are no public hearings this evening, so we will now move on to a public comment on legislation. Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to comment about any of the legislative items on the agenda tonight? Anyone wishing to speak before council with comments or new information about the legislation on tonight's agenda may do so at this time. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Speakers must state their name and address. Comments should be addressed to council. If you have comments that are not about the legislation on tonight's agenda, there will be an opportunity for those to be heard later in the meeting. Does anyone wish to speak? Seeing none, we will then move on to ordinances in second reading.
Your Honor, I have an ordinance to amend the traffic control map and the traffic control file on the City of Kettering to show the installation of traffic signals on various city streets in the City of Kettering, Ohio. And it is requested by the Engineering Department, and I do move for approval.
Second.
Okay. Steve, Mr. Bergstresser, would you like to explain?
Thank you, Your Honor. This ordinance will address on-street parking issues and difficulty for drivers maneuvering along the section of Flesher Avenue between Patterson Road and Pauline Avenue when vehicles park on both sides of the roadway. The proposed on-street parking prohibition, in conjunction with the other ordinances in place along Flesher, will prohibit parking along the west side of Flesher for the entirety of the block from Patterson to Pauline. Be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of Mr. Bergstresser? Seeing none, call the roll.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall? Yes. Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mayor Lehner?
Yes. Mr. Klepacz.
Your Honor, I have a resolution this evening authorizing payment of 2022 membership dues to Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. The estimated cost is $25,620.16. The amount budget is $26,000, requested by Planning and Development Department. I move for approval.
Okay, Ms.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Schwedeman, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Your Honor. As mentioned, this will be authorization for our membership at the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. It's an annual fee based upon our population. Our budget is $26,000, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of Mr. Schwederman? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mayor Lehner?
Yes.
Mayor Lehner, I have a resolution for authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city to make a $5,000 contribution to the 2022 NCAA First Four Hoopla Ticket Program. This is being requested by the city manager's office, and the estimated cost is $5,000.
Move for approval.
I move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Schwederman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Over the last several years, the city has been a contributing sponsor to the First Four Committee that is the organizing committee for the first four NCAA basketball games at UD Arena. The sponsorship goes towards the providing of tickets to the airmen and school children. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Schwederman? Being none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mayor Lehner?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution appointing Peggy Lehner, Tony Klepacz, and Bruce E. Duke as trustees of the Kettering Development Corporation. Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Schwederman, you have any comments?
Thank you, Your Honor. The appointment for the Kettering Development Corporation happens approximately every 2 years. So we will be appointing Councilmans Klepacz and Duke to an additional 2-year term, and then appointing Mayor Lehner to her first 2-year term on the Kettering Development Corporation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Schwederman? Being none, please call the roll.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall? Mayor Lehner?
Thank you.
Mayor Lehner.
Yes.
You're both right.
The vote.
Your Honor, I have a resolution declaring the necessity of repairing sidewalks, curbs, and drive approaches as part of the Foyer Boulevard improvements, Smithville to Woodman, City Project Number 02-140F. This is being requested by the Engineering Department. The cost, I apologize, sorry. The cost is $100,000, and that is the same amount budgeted. I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Bergstresser.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a 2022 CIP project along 4 Boulevard between Smithville and Woodman that will include concrete-based pavement reconstruction between Hazel and Cortland and Woodman, asphalt-based reconstruction between Smithville and Whitlock, extensive curb replacement, ADA curb ramp replacement, and asphalt resurfacing. Along with this project, property owners are responsible for necessary repairs to the curbs, sidewalks, and drive approaches, and they will be assessed for repairs based on this resolution for necessity. Be happy to answer any questions.
Good. Any questions of Mr. Bergstresser? Being none, please call the roll.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall? Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mayor Lehner?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to use competitive bargaining and negotiated quotes to contract for the development of a storm water master plan, City Project 03-000F. Estimated cost is $100,000. It is budgeted, requested by the Engineering Department. I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Bergstresser.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will allow the city to contract with a consultant to perform a stormwater master plan. The purpose of the stormwater master plan is to broadly analyze the citywide storm sewer system, recognize areas of problems and concerns, and propose budgetary costs for corresponding future improvements. Additional spending in the future should be anticipated as more details of this project will be necessary to further develop and implement the plan. So this could be seen as a first step toward developing a larger master plan. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bergchester. Are there any questions? Okay, being none, please call the roll.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mayor Laner?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a DC fast charging grant from the Ohio EPA Diesel Mitigation Trust Fund. The estimated cost is $300,000 and the amount budgeted is $0. It is requested by the engineering department, and I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Mr. Bergstresser, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will allow the city to submit an application to the Ohio EPA for funding through the Diesel Mitigation Trust Fund for a DC fast charging grant to install a DC fast charging station here at the Kettering Government Center. The grant will be funded with dollars allocated to Ohio from the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust Fund, which is part of a court-ordered settlement to offset the excess air pollution emitted by some Volkswagen vehicles that violated the Clean Air Act. The grant funds are dedicated to supporting publicly available locations here, which particularly here at the Kettering Government Center. The Ohio EPA will provide up to 100% of the eligible project costs over a 5-year period. This proposed project will install one DC fast charging station and related infrastructure here at the north end of the parking lot at the Kettering Government Center. And the system will be designed to accommodate future charging stations if we are successful in getting the grant. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, being none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mayor Laner?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to use competitive bargaining and negotiated quotes to contract for printing of the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts Activities Guide. The estimated cost is $80,000. The amount budgeted is $70,000. It's requested by Parks, Recreation, and Culture Arts Department. I move for approval.
Second?
Mr. Sweeterman, do you have
Thank
any
you, Your Honor.
comments?
This resolution will allow us to obtain quotes for the printing of the program activities guide for the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts Department. The activities guide is mailed to households 4 times per year. The cost of paper and printing has risen since the estimates were put together, so we do have a difference of about $10,000 between the estimated cost and the budget. We will be able to cover that cost from existing funds within the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts Department budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Sweeterman? Being none, please call the roll.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mayor Laner?
Yes.
Mayor Lander, I have a resolution authorizing an amendment to the agreement with the Board of County Commissioners of Montgomery County, Ohio for application processing services under the U.S. Treasury's Emergency Rental Assistance Program. The estimated cost for this program is $2,100,000. The funds available are $2,100,000, and this is being requested by the Planning and Development Department. I move for approval.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeterman.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will authorize us to enter into an agreement to accept funding from the Board of County Commissioners of Montgomery County, Ohio, to amend the rental assistance contract to add an additional $2.1 million for emergency rental assistance for low-income renters in Kettering, Moraine, Centerville, and Washington Township. The initial amount of this contract was $500,000, which was also expanded by an additional $1 million in October of 2021. The total grant funds after this resolution would then be $3.6 million, and the funding will terminate at the end of the U.S. Treasury period of September 30th, 2022. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions of Mr. Sweeterman? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mayor Laner?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to advertise for bids and to contract for Phase 2 of the renovation of the Rosewood Arts Center. The amount of funds is $1.365 million and has been requested by the Public Service Department. Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Schwederman.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will authorize us to enter into the Phase 2 project period of the Rosewood Arts Center renovation. As mentioned, the budget for this phase is $1,365,000. The total construction budget for the renovation over 3 phases for Rosewood is just under $5 million. These funds are for construction only, as the furniture, fixture, and equipment for the Rosewood renovation is being handled through fundraising with the Kettering Parks Foundation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Being none, please call the roll.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall? Mayor Laner?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept and administer grants from the Kettering Parks Foundation for improvements to the pickleball facilities at Kennedy Park and the Charles I. Latham Center. This is being requested by the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts Department. The estimated cost is $1.25 million. Move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Schwederman.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will allow us to enter into an agreement with the Kettering Parks Foundation and to accept grant funds from the foundations for the purpose of reimbursing the city for construction costs related to the pickleball courts at Kennedy Park, as well as improvements at the Charles I. Latham Senior Center. The city has been fortunate to work with the Parks Foundation for many years, and certainly fortunate in this instance, as they are assisting in the raising of private funds for additional pickleball courts at Kennedy Park, as well as for an additional $1 million in work related to improvements at the Latham Center. That $1 million coming from the Doug Latham family through a donation at the end of 2021. So we're very thankful to the Latham family and to all of the residents and users of the pickleball court who are assisting in the fundraising effort through the Parks Foundation. So this resolution will allow us to work with the Parks Foundation. Mm-hmm. There will be future resolutions brought before council for the construction of the projects mentioned. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mayor Laner?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase equipment through sealed bids, negotiated quotes, or a cooperative purchasing program. Estimated cost $1,330,100. It is budgeted, requested by the Finance Department. I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Schwederman.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will essentially allow us to start the purchasing process for capital equipment included in the 2022 budget. These are the capital equipment items that are not included in our American Rescue Plan fund process. So the majority of these items are including vehicles such as police cruisers and unmarked vehicles, as well as street department employees such as an asphalt roller, a skid steer loader, forklift, backhoe, and a leaf loader, and a few other miscellaneous items throughout multiple departments, including such things as pickup trucks and welding equipment for our vehicle maintenance center. Now, again, what this process does is allow us to get started quickly in the year for these capital equipment purchases, which is important under normal circumstances and certainly more important in today's purchasing environment where supply chain issues are impacting delivery dates for vehicles. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Schwederman? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mayor Laner?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution to make supplemental appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Kettering, State of Ohio, during the fiscal year ending in December 31 of 2022. And the estimated cost is $2,122,775 with zero being budgeted, and it is requested by the Finance Department, and I move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Sweeterman.
Thank you, Your Honor. For this 2022 supplemental appropriation, we have essentially three items. The first is to appropriate $17,775 to carry over funding that was appropriated in 2021 but not encumbered for the MVCC closed captioning project that we presented to City Council in 2021. So simply moving the money from 21 to 22 so that we can pay that bill. The second item is $5,000 to fund the sponsorship donation mentioned earlier for the First Floor Committee. And the third item is $2.1 million for the appropriation of the grant funds from Montgomery County for the Tenant Assistance Program. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, is there any questions of Mr. Sweeterman? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepacz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duvall?
Yes.
Mr. Duke? Mayor Laner?
Yes. There are no ordinances in first reading tonight, so we will now move on to certification and petitions. I would like to call on Shawna Kaczynski.
Your Honor, we do not have any certifications or petitions this evening.
Okay, we'll then call on Mark Sweeterman for the manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have a few items for the community update, but first I'd like to start off script a little bit. We do have some late-breaking news in our aquatics division at the Park Recreation and Cultural Arts. We, like many other organizations, are suffering a supply shortage for staff. And as such, during the month of February, and actually starting on Monday, January 31st, our aquatics operation, or our indoor pool, will be closed from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. On Tuesday and Wednesday of the week for essentially the month of February to help us offset the issues we're having with staffing levels. So essentially what that means, on those 2 days, the pool will actually be closed from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. as we're not normally open from 1 to 3. And then it will open at the essentially when school breaks. So that's off script. Back on script. Speaking of the closed captioning program, we do want to mention to our residents that recently installed equipment at MVCC allows Channel 5 and Channel 6 to be closed captioning available. So it's not just for our city, but for all the member cities of MVCC. If anybody has any questions on how it works or how to activate it, they can simply call the city manager's office at 296-2412, and we would walk them through that. It is January, so any chance we can in January, we talk about dog license renewal. And if you need to renew your dog license, you can do so by contacting Shelley Davis, our community service specialist in the police department, at 296-3266. The deadline is January 31st. And speaking of deadlines, the city income tax filing deadline for the 2021 tax year will be April 18th of 2022. Our tax division is open and ready to accept customers, so if you would like the city staff to prepare your return for you, you can do so by coming to 3600 Schroyer Road between the hours of 8 and 5 and going to our north building where the tax division is located, and they can prepare your returns for you. No appointment is necessary. Your Honor, that's all I have for you for the community update. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Sweeterman? Okay, thank you. At this time, if you would like to come speak before City Council, please come to the podium. Each speaker will have a 5-minute limit. Speakers are asked to state their name and address. Is there anyone who would like to speak to City Council this evening? Please come forward. Familiar face.
Yeah.
I am Charlene Bayless, 2422 Patterson Boulevard, 45409. With thanks to those who have recently served the City of Kettering on its council, Mayor Patterson with First Lady Maureen, Amy Shrimp, Rob Scott, Joe Wanamaker, Bill Lauder, those continuing to serve, to lead, Tony Klepacz and Bruce Duke, who are joined by recent electees, Mayor Lehner, Jill Hall-Smith, Bob Scott, and Lisa Duvall. The best to all of you and our city of Kettering. Foundational in Kettering was Van Buren Township and its grounding in a current strength, education, the public schools and the Kettering schools of the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. The city of Kettering is well positioned, a leader in the region, state, and beyond. Through city leadership, elected and administrative and public servants, individuals of their councils and boards, committees, and teams who are doing things beyond my ken, and through Kettering citizens who pay taxes and volunteer. And shortly after the estate tax was no longer in effect, through a windfall of several $1 million, Kettering is well positioned. Beyond the divided states of America, the judicial system and legislatures at the national and the state levels cause havoc in every jurisdiction's commission, council, and board of education rooms, and in the population at large. Divisiveness, disruption, discord, disunity, divide and conquer. Never before happenings are commonplace occurrences. Truth is dispensable. Corporations are people. Elections not allowed to stand. Those serving are bought. Election officials asked to change results and threatened. Legislation at federal and state levels nationwide is introduced, amended, and passed in the night. First Amendment, right to protest, could result in a jail or a fine to individuals and organizations. Second Amendment, guns, arsenals, militia. General Eisenhower's feared military-industrial complex is in place. A needed bumper sticker, more guns, more dead people. People are encouraged to tattle on a personal decision for a bounty. In textbooks, slaves are now day workers. The capital of the United States of America is under siege by those who should be serving its citizens. Plagues and wars are always with us, Albert Camus said in 1923, and people are always surprised. Driving the nation's ever-increasing wealth inequity and resulting evils is a technochasm between the haves and the have-nots. The result of not the linear progress we've known over centuries, the inequality is nature's law of exponential progress in this 21st century world of technology and invention. God bless us all with prayers for a president who must speak to the State of the Union of a nation coming apart at the seams. Thank you. Thank you who serve with dedication and excellence, honor and wisdom in Kettering's governance and administration and service.
Sweet.
Charlene, just before you sit down, let me just thank you for your comments. You live by example. I know we don't always agree on every issue, but over the years, you and your husband have been shining examples of citizens who care about your community and engage in thoughtful discussion and debate. And I thank you for what you have done over the years. So thank you. Okay. We'll now move on to City Council reports. And let's start with the Vice. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Is there anyone else in the audience who wanted to come forth? Okay, seeing none. All right, we will now move on to City Council reports, and we will start with the Vice Mayor.
Well, Your Honor, first I want to uplift and thank Mr. Klepacz next to me. He did an exceptional job at putting together Mayor Patterson's retirement. Very well attended, and I know that he enjoyed it, as did all of the folks that attended. I will tell you, ma'am, my highlight of the last couple weeks was today when I went to Kettering Fairmont High School, and I got to speak to all the social studies classes, and the students there were fantastic about learning about what we do as a local city council, and they gave lots of great feedback to us and encouraged them to register to vote and then use their voices to vote. And so I think hopefully our next generation of voters are rocking and ready to go. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Klepacz.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mrs. Fisher, for your comments. COVID continues to either directly or indirectly affect our daily lives. Most recently, in the last 2 weeks, I've had a city or a council meeting with a Sister Cities committee that I'm the council liaison canceled. We had a ribbon cutting that was canceled last week. So all that I mention only because I want to make sure, get your vaccinations, wear your mask, and shop Kettering. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mrs. Hall.
I've had the pleasure of getting to learn a lot more about my hometown of Kettering since being elected and reading through our materials and all the things that the city has to offer the residents. And I was amazed to find out that Kettering Parks and Recreation and Cultural Arts is a gold medal award winner for best recreation program in the country, and one of few, if not one of the only departments that nationally has been accredited 5 times with 3 national gold medals. That might have been said before in other meetings, but it's news to me, so I thought that was worth saying again. I had the pleasure of being appointed to the Bikeways Committee since starting, and I also found out that we're a bronze level bicycle-friendly community, and that you can find our bike routes online on the Kettering government website.
Thank you very much. Okay. Mr.
Thank you,
Scott.
Your Honor. On the Martin Luther King weekend, I attended the Flying to the Hoop basketball tournament over at Trent Arena, and it's amazing the skill level of some of the teams we bring from around the country into Kettering, okay? It's amazing, and as a sports fan, it is truly a blessing to see that, including some of the local teams. It was good, including our own Fairmont Firebirds. And at least for one weekend, this area, Kettering specifically, is the epicenter of high school basketball. Well done by the group that runs that.
Thank you.
I have no
Ms.
update this
Duvall.
evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. As Tony mentioned, some things are being canceled. I know I've had a First Suburbs meeting has been canceled and other activities that are being canceled because of COVID. And I normally don't do this, but I'm going to do it. There have been editorials in the paper, and public officials have been asked to speak out more than we have been speaking out regarding what's going on in this community and in our state relative to COVID. And so I'm just going to say a few words about that, because I believe we are at a crisis point, and it is very dangerous for many folks. I know I have friends that have died in the last week. I'm sure others are aware of folks that have passed away due to COVID. This morning's paper, the headline, "Area Record Set for Those Hospitalized with COVID." And I just want to read the 4th paragraph. "The vast majority of the region's COVID patients and nearly 9 out of 10 in intensive care units have not received a single dose of coronavirus vaccine, according to the Greater Dayton Area Hospital Association." And on page 4 of the same paper, the chart listing where we stand in this county, and 58.5% of all of our residents in Montgomery County have started at least one dose of the vaccine. Only 58%, meaning 42%, give or take, are not vaccinated. I plead If you know those folks, if you are one of those folks, I plead for your lives. This is serious. I got information today. The Miami Valley Hospital is overfilled with, they don't have room. This is getting really serious. So I just want to share that. If you know of someone that needs help with this, please take them if they need to be taken to get a vaccine. This is critical. And continue, please, to wear your mask at all times. Thanks, Your Honor. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Duke, and you took the words and the article right out from under me. I was going to quote the exact same article. That's quite all right. This is so critical. We can repeat it over and over. I had a very dear friend who lost her son yesterday to COVID. I know of at least one other person who is a friend and neighbor of one of us up here, lost their life yesterday. This is serious, folks. We have to take this as a crisis. You know, normally we get up here and have council reports. We have all sorts of places to mention that we've been. I've been mayor for a week. I've done nothing. Nothing. It's closed. Everything's closed. Don't snicker. It's really not funny. Places that in normal open houses you go to, ribbon cuttings, they're just shut down. So please, please do what you can, not only for yourself, but for the people you love. And we hope we will come out of this sometime soon. But in the meantime, we'll enjoy doing nothing, I guess. Thank you. Being no further business to come before City Council, our next regularly scheduled council meeting will be February 8th, 2022, and this meeting is adjourned.